Is it on? Wait, is it streaming or recording? It's recording. Okay. Hello, I am Saki, and tonight is Thursday, which means poetry night. So I'm going to read you a poem that I've been working on for 2 years now, approximately. And I finished most of it in like the last 2 months, and by that I mean I finished most of it within the last 2 weeks because I set a deadline for myself to finish it today, and then I did that. I literally wrote the last verse like 2 hours ago. Anyway, this is a huge poem. Like, you're gonna probably have to put pause and take like a bathroom break in between when there's a good stopping point. But anyway, this poem, let me introduce it, is based on a Russian folktale. It's actually not based on, it just is a Russian folktale that I've put into verse. And I just want to show you this really awesome book. This is where I first learned about the story. So this is Junior Great Books. It's a collection of short stories for first graders, or I don't know, it says series 3 first semester, but I read this in first grade. So anyway, the one that I'm going to be doing is on page 96, The Little Humpbacked Horse, Russian Folktale as Told by Post Wheeler. I don't know who that is, but anyway, the folktale is part of a series of Russian folktales called Little Fool Ivan, or Ivan the Fool. There's like a bunch of variations on that title, but anyway, it's about this dumb guy who is incidentally handsome, and by virtue of being dumb, he is not evil. Like, he doesn't have the brain power to come up with ways to like screw people over. So he's a good guy, even though he's dumb. And because of this, good things just kind of happen to him. So I don't know. I guess that's the moral of the story. But anyway, I really liked the story, and I decided I liked it so much that I was gonna like make it rhyme and stuff. So oh my god. There's a post-it note in here from when I was in first grade, and I decided to draw the humpback horse. This is so cute. It's like I don't know if you can see that. It's a camel with donkey ears. Anyway, distracted. Okay, so what was I gonna say? That's where this poem comes from. Is I'm just turning a story into a poem. I am really bad at introducing things, so I'm just gonna read it off my iPad, which is on a stand tonight because it's such a long poem. My hand would just fall off if I had to carry my iPad. Okay. Sorry there's like a lot of background noise. I think my computer is doing like a Windows virus scan or something, and it's just taking like all of the brain power of my entire laptop. Okay, so here we go. Without further ado, this is Little Fool Ivan, or maybe it's the Little Humpback Horse. I don't know. It's the adventures of one of them, one or more of them. Anyway, here's the poem. Okay. It began with a thief stealing hay from the barn every night in a farm by the town. The farmer was old, so he sent his 3 sons to keep watch, may the robber be found. The elder 2 brothers, shunning the task, scurried for shelter to sleep. But little fool Ivan, the youngest of 3, steadfastly guarded the feed. Exactly at midnight, the moon shining full, the criminal finally appeared. The mystery man was no man at all, but a gentle ivory mare. Ivan gazed as she grazed, then recalling his task, crept up behind her, and mounted. Off she flew like an arrow, unable to throw him, as through ocean and heaven she bounded. Till the golden glimmer of dawn did they ride, reconvening at last at the farm, where Ivan released her, quiet and calm, assuring he meant her no harm. The mare said to Ivan in humanoid words that never before was she caught. In exchange for release, 3 gifts she would leave him, the likes of which could not be bought. Ivan accepted the deal and went home and recounted the night's wild ride. The tale was too tall for his fathers and brothers, who could only assume that he lied. For 3 days the mare was a guest of the stables, and on the 4th day she bore 3 steeds of truly remarkable nature, worthy of legend and lore. The first noble horse had a mane of pure gold and hooves that were studded with pearls, and the second one boasted a coat of fine silver and a tail full of platinum curls. Both horses had eyes that burned like blue candles, flashing like sapphire bolts, and yet these 2 gems could hardly compare with the charm of the dear little colt. The runt of the run, unremarkably plain, without precious metal or jewel. The minikin pony had a small humpback, and long rabbit ears like a mule. The two jeweled creatures were assets for Ivan to keep as companions or sell, but the humpback was not to be given away, said the mare, as she bade them farewell. For the following days Ivan played in the stables, doting upon his new pets. Carefree was he who had never seen greed, but naivety brings regrets. One night the eldest brother returned, back from a night in the... I just used night twice in the same line. Let's change it to time. Back from a time in the town. Okay, hold on, let me just... I'm gonna correct my poem as I read it to you. Okay. One night the eldest brother returned, back from a time in the town. Too drunken to find the door to the house, he wandered the farm till he found the stable, the stable! He staggered inside, unprepared for the fortune untold. His eyes laid upon the magnificent beasts, a sobering sight to behold. He recruited his father and the next eldest son, and made them aware of the trove. The gang, full of envy for the one still asleep, conspired to make them their own. The father proclaimed, "That dim-witted lad, he knows not pewter from gold. Let's tell him a thief stole the horses at night, and we'll take them to town to be sold." So the brothers loaded them into a cart, and drove off to town before dawn. Ivan awoke, and to his dismay, his prized possessions were gone. "Oh, where did they go? Did I treat them unwell?" The boy's tender heart nearly broke. Then the horse with the little humpback came out, and for the first time he spoke. "My dear Master Ivan, by no fault of your own, your brothers have made off with mine. Hop on my back, and I'll take you to them, but make haste, for we haven't much time." Not thinking it strange that the little horse talked, for his mother had done the same, Ivan straddled the pony without any saddle, and grabbed secure hold of his mane. Off they went like the wind down the old country road, catching up to the red-handed pair, who halted in terror and fell to their knees and begged to be understood fair. They claimed to have had only family in mind, that the proceeds would benefit all, and the farm would need all the help it could get, for summer was turning to fall. The virtuous fool, ever trusting and kind, saw wisdom and good intent. So he rode with his brothers to join their endeavors, and off into town they went. They arrived at the market and caused a commotion. Shoppers flocked for a glimpse of the things. Deserting their stalls, the merchants joined in, and word of all this reached the king. In moments the king appeared on the scene, and his men cleared a path through the horde. When he saw them, he knew that they must be had, so he offered what he could afford. The transaction was settled, and the brothers were paid, and the men had the horses tied. But the creatures objected, broke free from their reins, and returned to their master's side. The king, realizing no way around it, made Ivan the stable boy. And that was how, with no skill or endorsement, the fool came to be employed. The fool came to be employed. Those accents on the wrong syllables. For a few peaceful weeks, Ivan worked at the palace, but the others were soon to resent, for they envied how easy his work was to theirs, and rumors grew out of dissent. Cat hairs. They called him a traitor, a thief, and a spy, with intent to pilfer the crown, a sorcerer disguised as a dim-witted boy, that the king should let his guard down. Upon hearing this, the king strategized to rid the lad from his land, but not wanting his subjects to think him a coward, he fabricated a plan. The boy was summoned and tasked with a challenge, one he could not decline. The fabled golden boar he must fetch, and her 7 suckling swine. He was allotted 3 days to retrieve him, or else it was off with his head. The boy was dismissed and returned to his room, where he sobbed and collapsed on the bed. Ivan's dear little horse bade him to tell what troubled his master so. Ivan relayed the king's lofty orders, and toiled again in his woe. The horse said, "This task can yet be done, so it is no reason to weep. But morning holds more wisdom than night, so sleep, dear Ivan, sleep." Hold on, I'm just gonna... My foot fell asleep here. Cat, you are heavy, and I think that is why my foot fell asleep. Alright, here we go. In the morning, the horse instructed the boy to request from the king these supplies: silver wheat and golden corn, and a gunny sack fastened with ties. The items were gathered, and the pair set out, and they rode until the next day. And how they were going to capture the game, the horse explained on the way. "The golden kernels shall be laid inside the open gunny sack, and the silver wheat in a separate pile a dozen paces back. The golden boar will spy the feast, electing the silver wheat, and the piglets will prefer the corn, and all will begin to eat. When the piglets are all inside the bag, promptly fasten the string. Then quickly we shall ride away, and mother will come following. Rocky, stop. Stop messing my flowers up. Cut it out. I have fake flowers on the floor. Sorry. Okay, where were we? Straightforward was this kidnapping, an elegant solution. Rocky, can you not mess with my art studio, please? Thank you. Straightforward was this kidnapping, an elegant solution. Adeptly Ivan did as told, with perfect execution. Another day and night they rode, as fast as they were able, arriving just in the nick of time at the palace stables. Maybe it's stables singular. Well, that rhymes better with able, so I'm just going to change it. At the palace stable. Wait, no, but they're stables. Okay, hold on, let me unchange that. Arriving just in the nick of time at the palace stables. Okay, that's good. The silver babes were then discharged inside an empty stall, and Ivan escaped through a door in the back, as per protocol. The golden boar came storming in to rejoin her 7 tots. Ivan went round and shut the front gate, and thus all the prizes were caught. Exhausted, Ivan slunk off to bed, while the rest of the palace crew hotly debated the matter at hand. The gossip could not be subdued. The king was perturbed by the boy's success, a boy who remained so humble. Was he really a wizard disguised as a dunce? Is this how his kingdom would crumble? So the king, again, in attempt to protect his status as royalty, concocted another impossible task to test the lad's loyalty. The next evening, the king had the stable boy brought to inform of his upcoming charter. The last one had proved to be child's play, so this next one would be a bit harder. He was to capture the fabled mare whose head grew 7 manes, along with her 7 stallion mates, and for this he had 7 days. I know this sounds crazy, but everything that I'm saying is in this book. Yes, they said a mare with 7 manes on her head. I don't know who comes up with this stuff. The Russians, apparently. Okay. The consequence was the same as before, should Ivan fail to pull through. And decree was decree without leniency, said the king, as he bid them adieu. Overwhelmed with this plight was poor Ivan, who fell back to his room and wept. But his little horse promised a solution to find, so reluctantly Ivan slept. In the morning, the humpback instructed his master to acquire these things for the course, a mallet as heavy as Ivan could lift, and a thick leather hide from a horse. As instructed, Ivan procured the supplies, and off to the west they flew. Along the way, the horse explained exactly what Ivan should do. We shall find the field where the mare may graze, where clovers may please her palate. Here tie the horsehide onto my saddle, and wait in the trees with the mallet. When the mare and her harem of 7 arrive, upon seeing me she'll attack. Thinking I'm here to claim her land, she'll soon set her teeth in my back. Waste no time in making use of diversion, for my leather won't last very long. Come up behind her and strike with the hammer between her ears, true and strong. While she is stunned, grab hold of her manes, hop on my back and we'll ride. And her 7 stallion kin will come too, running along beside. Now, it may take a clever fox to engineer a heist, but to simply carry out a plan, a stable boy sufficed. For 3 days they traveled to the faraway place, to the land where clovers grow. On the 4th morn they did as discussed, and stationed themselves in the grove. No sooner did they set up their post did the creatures appear from the haze. First came the docile herd of males, who peacefully started to graze. Then came the mystical matriarch mare, with 7 manes forming her crown. At once she noticed the trespasser, and charged to take him down. Enraged, she chewed up the humpbacked horse. Good thing he was wearing the leather. Out came Ivan, who knocked her right out, and grabbed hold of her manes altogether. He mounted the humpback, who then took off, and the stallions followed their lead. To the ends of the earth they would follow their queen, all 7 of them loyal steeds. In 3 nights they returned to the palace stables, dropped off the catch and retired. Ivan slept carefree once again. Ivan slept carefree once again. Carefree. Ivan slept carefree once again. Ivan slept carefree once again. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote this. I think that the accent's on the wrong syllable. Ivan slept carefree once again, unlike he who had him hired. Hold on, let me just retake that stanza. In 3 nights they returned to the palace stables, dropped off the catch and retired. Ivan slept carefree once again, unlike he who had him hired. The king on one hand was thoroughly pleased by his growing menagerie, but on the other was uneasy as ever, this Ivan, this boy, who was he? So he dreamt up a final impossible feat for the stable boy who was then summoned. Poor Ivan, who just awoke from his nap, still had his shirt unbuttoned. Said the king, "Once again I am truly impressed by your second success. However, all that was merely a warm-up of sorts for your next mandatory endeavor." As Ivan rubbed the sleep from his eyes, the king laid down the new task. This one, surely, he thought, was a truly impossible ask. Ivan was given a fortnight's time to fetch for the king a maid, a lady of legend who lives in the east, on whom few eyes have laid. She resides in the land where the sun is reborn, at the edge of a crystal-clear sea. This maiden, a princess, the boy was to fetch, for the king's bride to be. As before, the contract was binding, the price of failure was high, and though the king promised this one was the last, it was nevertheless do or die. For the 3rd time Ivan bleakly returned to his stable and horses 3, and laid on his bed and wearily said, "Oh, why did this happen to me?" His dear little friend begged him to tell the bad news, perchance to assist. But Ivan replied, "There isn't a point, for the prize we seek doesn't exist." "Oh, come now," the horse said, "you cannot be sure, until we give it a try. Now before sunrise, procure these supplies, and later I shall explain why." So later that night, I just used later like in back-to-back lines. I think I'm going to put a star there and try to find a better word. So later that night, Ivan went to the king with a lengthy shopping list. The king raised a brow, but fulfilled the request. Not a single item was missed. As specified, all of these things were got, beginning with delicacies, exotic foods from faraway lands, an assortment of goods such as these: caviar caught from the Caspian Sea, olives from Rome and Greece, Turkish delight and baklava with gold leaf on every piece, an assortment of rare and tropical fruits, cheese aged with truffle and pine, and only the very finest of bottles from the king's own collection of wine. Jellies and jams in dainty tart shells, honey and figs and dates, rice pudding seasoned with saffron, and now moving on to the plates. Hand-hammered dishes of silver and gold, ivory spoons white as milk, chalices carved from a single crystal, and a tablecloth sewn of pure silk. To top off the list, 2 golden rods, and in brilliant blues and reds, tapestries woven with pearls and gems, embroidered with golden threads. The cargo was packed, and the 2 set out, greeting the rising sun. The horse didn't lay out the plan this time, saving his breath for the run. To the easternmost edge of the earth they went, and past even that they flew, over the seas unsailed by man, to an island that nobody knew. But at last an island did appear. Perhaps the legend was true, and should the maiden also be real, the horse explained what to do. First lay the silken tablecloth upon the fine white sand, then the dishes and foods come next, arranged in a manner grand. The wine shall be poured in the goblets, and utensils placed in each dish, and after the feast is fully prepared, a tent must be pitched like this. Erect the pair of golden rods, one on each side of the plot, and over those hang the tapestries, thus providing shade for the spot. Then, on the western side of the tent, make a cut in the tapestry, so you won't cast a shadow upon the cloth when you use this people to see. Now hurry, young master, the dawn is nigh, and the maiden will soon come ashore. Let us ensure that breakfast is served, and the tent set up well before. As Ivan prepared the banquet feast by the glow of a twilight moon, his horse went over the final instructions, for the maiden's arrival was soon. When she gets here, she'll notice the tent and curiously wander inside. Upon seeing the fare, she'll sit down to eat, all while you stand back and spy. After a time, she'll have her fill and promptly adjourn the buffet. As soon as she stands to exit the tent, act quickly without delay. Wrap her up inside the tapestries and mount me before she gets out. And once we're galloping at full speed, she'll have no way to dismount. As Ivan just finished pitching the tent and making a hole in the side, a figure emerged on the very horizon, approaching them fast with the tide. Yes, she is real. The figure became a silver canoe without sails, and its passenger paddled a golden oar, her face shrouded in veils. She reached the beach and disembarked, and approached the foreign tent. Impressed by the lavish embroidery, to further inspect she went. Removing her veils, she peered inside, and was greeted with tempting treats. The silken floor was inviting enough, so she sat down and started to feast. Meanwhile, Ivan peered through the hole, entranced by the dining beauty. He ogled in awe at each movement she made, quite forgetting his duty. Before he knew it, the time had come for the kidnapping to advance. The maiden left and returned to her boat. Ivan had missed his chance. Now Ivan was sure that this was the end, that this quest would be his demise. He cursed the day he met the white mare as salty tears fell from his eyes. The humpback horse consoled his master. "Dear Ivan, do not despair, for there is still time. We have 14 days, and it took us just 6 to get here. Tonight is night 7, but remember she comes just as the day is starting. If we repeat what we've done today tomorrow, we'll return 13 nights since departing." Little fool Ivan, not one for math, took the horse's word. After cleaning up all the picnic platters, he slept that night reassured. Before sunrise, he got up to serve yet another glorious meal. He resolved to focus on the plan, the beautiful maiden to steal. Again she came across the sea at the first sign of morning light, and as before she was lured in by the tantalizing sight. Ivan kept watch from the back of the tent, observing her every move. Her delicate hands as she refilled her glass or picked up an ivory spoon. Her locks of hair gently swaying with everything that she touched. Her crimson lips as she sipped the good wine, today perhaps 1 cup too much. Finally, having had her fill, she stood up from the luncheon. At this very moment, Ivan remembered to follow through with the abduction, which almost rhymes with luncheon. He enveloped her in the tapestry tent and swept her off her feet. Away from the scene he took her future husband, to meet. At first she kicked and struggled. Who wouldn't if they've just been captured? But seeing her captor incidentally handsome, the maiden became quite enraptured. It was love at first sight, you may say, though the extra wine probably helped. In any case, both were in love with each other, though they didn't express what they felt. For 6 weary nights they traversed the earth. For 6 weary nights they traversed the earth and arrived at the king's royal hall. They were welcomed by servants already prepared to host a great wedding ball. Many people were gathered there, citizens coming to see the beautiful princess of the East and her crowning as the new queen. The king announced to the palace guests that this talented, brave young man shall be from here on declared a hero, honored throughout the land. Simba, don't kick my mic stand. I'm just kidding. Poor cat. Now, moving on to the lady, of whom he was so very fond. On one knee he asked for her hand in marriage, and this was the maiden's response. "A qualified king you may be, and yet the physical can't be ignored. I shall not marry an old man like you, unless your youth is restored." The king had to laugh. "You cannot expect that I could turn back time. But if you know a way, I'll give it a try." And this is how she replied. "Even a tree whose leaves are fallen, whose branches and bark are thick, can still grow a canopy new and fresh if the roots underneath are not sick. In other words, your soul must be pure and your heart untainted by sin. If this is the case, the following spell will unleash the beauty within. Prepare 3 large cauldrons, all in a row, the first 2 with fire beneath. The first shall have boiling hot water, and keeping it boiling is key. The second large pot shall be filled to the brim with horse's milk, also boiled. The third has cold water. Now listen well, or else the plan will be foiled. You must bathe in the boiling water for precisely 3 minutes and spend not a second longer, but enter the cauldron of boiling mare's milk, and then you'll stay in the milk for 2 minutes, again the timing exact, and lastly submerge for a single minute inside the cold water bath. Sorry, I just lost my spot. When you emerge from the final vat, the days of your youth shall return. That is, if your soul is truly pure, or else you'll instead be burned. This concluded the maiden's speech, and at first the king had to laugh. But seeing her solemn, he took a brief moment to think upon his own behalf. What was I thinking when I wrote this? To think upon his own behalf. Okay, we'll go with that for now. I might revise that stanza. Alright, where were we? But seeing her solemn, he took a brief moment to think upon his own behalf. How does one know if one's soul is pure? Surely I am not a saint. Surely I'm not a saint. Wait, how does one know if one's soul is pure? Surely I'm not a saint. But just as surely I'm not a bad man, a coward perhaps, but who ain't. The other thing to consider, too, is that all of this may be a hoax. Who ever heard of a fountain of youth in which one doesn't drink, but soaks? This is me attempting to charade soaking. Okay. The king sat in contemplation, and when his thoughts coalesced, he ordered the cauldrons prepared as described for Ivan's ultimate test. Sneaky guy. Said the king, "Ivan, my loyalist lad, please show us just how it is done. Of all of the challenges you've overcome, this is by far the easiest one." It looks like poor Ivan was not off the hook. He thought himself better off dead. He glanced at his horse for a word of advice, and this is what the horse said. "Be strong, my master, be brave, be calm. This is no cause for alarm. I give you my word, my promise and blessing, and I'll cast on the cauldrons a charm." The little horse galloped in circles around the cauldrons, ears clapping with joy, and he dipped his nose into each bath. Oops, I meant to put into. And he dipped his nose into each bath. Oh, no, wait, in each bath. Sorry. Nope, syllables are correct here. And he dipped his nose in each bath and then snorted some mist at the boy. With this, Ivan was now reassured, for he had just been blessed. His horse never steered him wrong in the past, so with confidence he got undressed. Into the boiling hot water he stepped. Strange, it didn't seem hot. So he steadily lowered himself until he was fully submerged in the pot. The audience held their breath. The air was tense and nervous. Then, after 3 most suspenseful minutes, miraculously, Ivan surfaced. He wasted no time getting into the milk, and in this bath spent 2 minutes. After that, he emerged and did one final dunk in cold water, then he was finished. Ivan, already good-looking before, was now breathtakingly so. The crowd beheld this handsome figure before them without any clothes. The king couldn't wait any longer, for he was so very impressed that he upped and offed from his royal throne to repeat the boy's success. He removed his crown, whispered a prayer, and took in a couple deep breaths. He plunged into the boiling water and was instantly scalded to death. Yes, this very water that Ivan just used killed the king. Oh, how absurd! The castle fell silent, for not 1, but 2 unspeakable acts just occurred. The silence was broken by Ivan, who realized he was still nude. He modestly asked for a robe which was brought, and he donned it, as not to be rude. That being addressed, needless to say, there was a new problem to face. The king did not have any next of kin, so now who should rule in his place? Conveniently, Ivan was eligible, as he just proved his heart's purity. He could make up with virtue what he lacked. He could make up with whatever he lacked in wit and maturity. He was also a certified hero, and now extra handsome to boot. Whether there was a more qualified man was a question exceedingly moot. So it was decided by popular vote that Ivan should take the throne. and the maiden was also part of the deal. The wedding would not be postponed. And let us by no means forget our dear little humpback horse, the actual hero of this tale, without whom things could have been worse. The horse earned himself a place by the throne as Ivan's royal advisor, for although they now called him King Ivan, he was still than a fool no wiser. With the conflict resolved and good people in charge, the rest of this story's a yawn. And so it was happily ever after, for dumb luck's paragon. Okay, the end. Wow, how long did that take to read? Like 20 minutes? Anyway, thank you for staying to listen, and I hope you enjoyed that. And, I don't know if I remember to say this at the beginning of the video, but if anyone knows an illustrator who would like to illustrate, anyone who wants to make some drawings for this poem and make kind of like this thing with like pictures and stuff, but with poetry instead of prose, I would love to get this published. And just link them to me in your comments, or I don't know, message me on Facebook or something. Okay, that was a long poem. I guess see you next Thursday. Good night.